area, and we track a lot of data on an annual basis at the municipal level that we have readily available. We also can do kind of more detailed data collection and analysis for you. You know, if it's a quick thing, then we can just do it for you. We can also be commissioned to do more detailed data collection and analysis work. So you should know about that. And if you want to grab one of my cards on the way out, you can always contact me for things like that. And Anna Maria Garcia is here today from the Boston Regional Office of the U.S. Census Bureau. She's a senior partnership specialist, and she's going to tell you more today about what data is available through the Census Bureau and how to access it.
Great.
So
Thank you so
for
much.
being with us today.
My pleasure. Actually, my trip, I live in Connecticut, and I commute every single day to Boston, so my commute today was So this is information that if you should have, if you can't reach Molly, or even if you could reach Molly and you still want to talk to someone about data, there's 6 of us in the office, and anyone who answers the phone is capable of walking you through any of the data requests that you have. And if it's something that we don't have, we'll research it and then make a recommendation of where you might get it. Okay? But I would always recommend to go to your local place, because the local place has a better flavor of what's going on. So I have given you a package. I just want to walk through what's contained in the package. On the right-hand side, there's a statistical abstract DVD. Pretty neat. What we do, what the Bureau does, is collects data that is gathered by people other than ourselves. And then we compile it, and it is the statistical abstract. So if you wanted to know what's the most purchased ice cream, flavor of ice cream, what do you think it is in this country? Vanilla. Vanilla. You know, people get into funky monkey and all that kind of stuff. It's vanilla by far. So you know, this is a great informational piece. A brochure on the American FactFinder, and then the 3 sheets behind that are pretty important. The blue and yellow one, it's the sheet that we actually have this on our computer screens, because it describes for you what summary file 1 is, which I'm going to go into detail, summary file 2, 3 and 4, the different summary files. And on the other side, it gives you every single ethnicity and racial breakdown for which you can get data. So you start to see that we not only have data for the total population and for the broad racial categories, but we also can give you this kind of detail on the system. And so this is a great cheat sheet. The other one is the release schedule for census products. And we've already released 2 sets of data, and we'll talk about that and what's coming up next. And then a fact sheet on the American Community Survey. And we'll talk about what the American Community Survey is, which I think is the data set that is the most important to people, because it has that rich data, educational attainment, grandparents as caregivers, like that. So that's on that side. And then on this side, what I did was I gave you a copy of the PowerPoint so you can write notes, right, if you so desire. I also provided you with 1 profile, and this is the social profile. And these are profiles that are on the system, and you can download them and have contain incredible amount of data, as you see. You know, this social one has households by type, has relationships in households, marital status, women, grandparents, number of grandparents, school enrollment, educational attainment. So you can get to see that we put together a fact sheet or a data profile that can give you a lot of information. For some people, this is all that they need. Okay? For others, they want some more detail, and that's what we're going to do today. And then finally, I provided, based on the numbers that came out, in Massachusetts, the ranking by counties that are the most populous, and in the cities and towns. In the cities, we only get the top 20 in all of the countries. it to 2000 so you can see what the growth was. So that's what's in the packet. And as I'm going through this, at any point, please just stop me and say it out loud, because if I'm like looking at or talking about something, I might not just see a hand. So let's just say I have a question or whatever it is you want to say. Do we want to lower the lights so that people can see this better?
It's okay. Yeah, the kids are
Would that work for you to see it a little bit? Yeah.
Actually, let me see it. Is that okay? Because we want to keep a little bit of light on because we're recording for other people to be able to see. But
Okay.
if you can't see well, then I'll switch it.
That one doesn't really do anything for the screen.
Oh.
Well,
I think that's okay.
That's fine.
that will not change your charge, right?
Nope.
His charge is to make me the most beautiful woman from that. He doesn't have a woman. So we'll see. Great. So I'm Ana Maria Garcia, and I am a senior partnership specialist with the Bureau. I worked in the 2000 census as a partnership specialist going out to community groups, like many of you, to encourage people to turn around to their constituents and encourage people to respond. After the census was over, they asked me to, actually right in the middle of the census, they asked me to manage the Hartford office. Then I became the local census office manager in Hartford. When the decennial was over, they asked me to stay on and do presentations. So I stayed on for about 5 years, and then I left. I'm an attorney by profession. And then around 2007, they started calling, do you want to come back? No. Do you want to come back? No. Then about the late 2000, and I said, okay, I want to do that. And so this time I came back as a partnership coordinator, overseeing Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Puerto Rico, and all of the specialists that we had in those areas, again, reaching out to communities. And we started this census thinking that what had happened in the past 10 years was going to impact dramatically our response rate. And we were actually prepared to have it go down, so that if it went down, we wouldn't be disappointed. And actually what we did, because of groups like yourselves and so many other groups who really reached out to communities, we matched our response rate of 2000, and then we went up some. Okay? So that for us was a huge win. And it's important because we all know how important that data is. You know, now is when people are saying, oh my goodness, you know, this is why we need to respond to the data. You know, so when people say, you know, what difference does it make? It makes a lot of difference. You know, if we count 500 children, that's the base number that's used to allocate any kind of federal funds. But if in reality there are 1,000 children, you already start at a deficit, right? So it's really, really important. And so, and I'll talk about that. So our system, our data retrieval system, oh very nice, it's not going by itself.
You just caught up with all your clicks.
Yeah. Our data retrieval system is the American FactFinder, which is on the left-hand side of the screen. This is our principal page. So let me take some time just to look through this principal page. You know, you can spend 2 weeks on just this page alone without even getting to the American FactFinder with all of the data that we have there. So you see that we have the population that was captured on April 1st, right, of 308 million. And then in the middle of the page, you have people in households. And so you have information about the American Community Survey. You have information about estimates and projections and housing. And any one of those, if you click on, you'll move into a data field. Business and industry, we do an economic census. We do an economic census every 5 years, in the years ending in 2 and the years ending in 7. Right? Pretty interesting set of information for those who are doing some economic planning. Right? We have economic indicators. So it's a great tool for communities. It also gives you information on, in Springfield, how many people who live in Springfield work in Springfield, how many people who live outside of Springfield and where they come to work in Springfield, and how many people from Springfield go outside to work and where they go. Gives you a great flow, and you can map it out and all that kind of stuff. So if you ever have some time, just go in there and fool around with it. It's a great tool. Then we have geography. You know, we've got a great mapping system. So for those of you who want to map, for instance, in Connecticut, they take all of our shape files, and then the Department of Health reshapes them into their health districts, and then they can collect data that way, because we don't do it by health districts. So that's the Tiger files. Lots of maps on the system as well. And then if you ever want to know what's going on, the newsroom will give you some information. On the left-hand side of the screen, this is pretty sensitive, isn't it? On the left-hand side of the screen, you have the American FactFinder, if you're interested in jobs and all of that kind of stuff on this side here. And on the right side of the screen, you have the population clock of the world and of the U.S. going on. So we'll look at the number now and we'll see if it changes by the time that we're done this morning. You can also find information on cities and towns in the population finder, okay? And then some quick facts. So that's just this page. But if we click onto American FactFinder, you'd come to this page. And pretty soon we're going to get on it, and then people can navigate. We're going to do 4 exercises at the end, and then you can be, if whatever data you're interested in, just let me know and I can help you navigate through it. You'll come up to the American FactFinder, which has 2 of them. Okay? You've got the new American FactFinder on the right-hand side, and that contains all of 2010 data, and they've uploaded Census 2000 data, and that's all it contains there. And then, not to confuse you, we have a second system, right? The Legacy American FactFinder, which has all of the American Community Survey, Economic Census, and the population estimates are all on the Legacy. The Legacy data will migrate to the new Census FactFinder by the end of the year, and then the Legacy will go away, much to our horror, and the new system will be on. And I say that because the Legacy system is very, very intuitive. And so if you get on it for the first time, once you navigate through some data, you can really do it on your own. This one, the intuition comes from the user. And so it's, and I would imagine that by the time that all of the data is up, those of us who use it all the time will be very, very happy with it. But that's not the case right now. And they know that because we said that. Right? And so what I wanted to do was tell you our language. We have a way of creating new language, and sometimes the word that we use doesn't refer, doesn't help you conjure up what it is that we mean. So in the American FactFinder, in the new one, you're going to find programs. And programs are any census or any survey that's up on the system. You're going to find data sets, and that's the data file that's there. Summary file 1, summary file 2, like that. Product type. Any one of the tables. There's about, I want to say 7,000 tables up on the system. And our maps. We also have great mapping capacity. And then summary levels. Summary levels, all it means is geography. Now, when you think of summary levels, geography is not what comes to your mind first. Right? We've always used the term summary levels, but in 2000, it was behind the screen, so the user never saw it. This time, they're putting it up front. So we want to explain to people, we're talking about geography when we're talking about summary levels. And we're going to go through all of this. So these are the types of programs that are on the system. The decennial census, and you know we take a census every 10 years, and it's become pretty simple to respond to because there's only 10 questions, and we'll go through that in a bit. We do a population estimates program. So every year in July, we produce based on the previous census numbers. So in 2012, in July, our population estimate will be done based on the 2010 results, on the 308 million, rather than the 2000. The other ones were done in 2000. And we ask people, we inform people, that between decennials, the population estimate is the official count. So you can say, this is the count for this area. We do the American Community Survey is also a program, and that's where we give you the annual social and demographic kind of data. And then we do other surveys and censuses. People kind of think that we're only in the business of the census. That's our primary business. However, we do a number of surveys on a monthly basis. The American Community Survey is one of those. We do the current population survey, which gives us an indication of how people are doing employment-wise. So when you hear employment is at X%, that comes from that survey. We don't produce that data. All we do is collect it and give to the Department of Labor, that who chunks the numbers and then produces the data. And then we do the economic census. We do the current expenditure survey, which gives us the state of the economy. That's where they get that figure from. So we do quite a number of surveys. We do a lot of surveys for other federal agencies that are sponsors of the data collection, and then we just collect it for them, and then provide them with the data, and they provide the information to the general public. So let's talk a little bit about the decennial. You know, in 2000, we had a long form. Did anybody in this room receive a long form? If you did, you remember. Okay, good. You know, and when we say long form, we really mean long form. It was 53 questions and 40 pages. Yeah, so you got that, right? But that's where you get some really rich information. Now, we heard from a lot of you over the years that, you know, there was great information, but we were collecting it every 10 years. And then by the time that we released the data, it was stale data. Right? So we were figuring out what we do. We spoke to a lot of focus groups around the country, and we decided that we'd pull it out, the long form, and make that the American Community Survey. Okay, so we have a different instrument that where we would collect data on an annual basis. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. In 2010, we had a short form. Then the short form had 10 questions. There's only 7 there. The other 3 were how many people in the household, okay? And if any of those people were elsewhere, colleges, prisons, hospitals, like that. And then a phone number. And we asked for the phone number solely if we got information, and the system got the information, and we had what appeared to be a duplicate. Okay? Because the same way we don't want an undercount, we don't want an overcount. So the phone number was just used to verify the information. Just going to press it once and then let it go. Population estimates. How we gather the population estimates, as I said to you, was on an annual basis in cooperation with states. We get from them their birth records, their death records, and any in and out migration that they have. And then from that, there's a formula, and we produce the pop estimate for that particular year. And that's done, again, as I said before, in July. And we'll give you annual demographics, as you see up here: age, sex, race, and ethnicity. And it's available at only to the cities and towns geography, not to any geography lower than that, and we'll talk about geography. And then there's some general demographic data for the nation and for counties, states and counties, but not for cities and towns. And this, as I said, this is the official census count between the census years. The American Community Survey. So, you know, we had these discussions about what will we do so that we could provide much more relevant data. And in 2005, after many focus groups, we decided to pull out the form, the long form, and make it a monthly survey. So every single month, there are 250 of about 3 million, which is a little bit smaller than what the sample was in 2000 of the households that got and received the long form, because that was 1 in 6. This one comes out to be a tad smaller, but we're comfortable with the size of the sample. There is a request now to Congress to allow us to increase the sample size, because that will begin to lower the margins of error. If any of you have been there on the American Community Survey site, you know that the margins of error are huge in some instances. And in this time of transparency, we've decided to publish everything, even if the margin of error is a 5 plus or minus 5,000. Then it's up to the user to decide if that is what they want to use or not. We say that we'll continue to use a short form. I can't imagine how we're going back now to a long form, because we have the ACS and we'll continue. What will change and what's being discussed now is, will it be a mailed out form, you know, a paper form, or will it be an electronic form? And those are all discussions. This census was, we were close to making the decision, because the decision to do that happens about 5 years before the decennial even takes place. There wasn't a comfort level that the data would be safe. And confidentiality is sort of the prime thing that we focus on. So they're still looking at that. And about the American Community Survey, since it's estimates, it's not an actual count. All you can see from the American Community Survey are trends. And there are some areas that you can see quite a number of trends, because we started producing some data back in 2005. So let me tell you about the ACS and how it is that we've released data. So in 2005, when the data was collected, the statistician said, you know what, it looks like we have sufficient data where we're comfortable we're releasing data for areas that have a population of 65,000 and above. So any area that had 65,000 or above was eligible for the 1-year estimate. So we've done those from 2005 all the way to 2009 and actually 2010. But there were not every single geography in this country has 65,000 or above, so they were a little bit concerned that we weren't giving them properly some data, but we weren't comfortable, the statisticians weren't comfortable with the data that would be released. So it wasn't until 2007 that there was a comfort level of being able to release data for geographies of 20,000 and above. So they got 3-year rolling estimates. And so you see now that we already have 3 years of data that's been released. So you can see a trend there, as you can see a trend in the 1-year estimate, if you were looking for trends. So areas that were small were very upset because they still didn't have any ACS data. And it wasn't until December of 2010 that the statisticians felt that we had enough data in the sample size to be able to include data for geographies under 20,000. So that was the first time that you got census tract or block group information. It doesn't go down to the block.
And
Yes, please.
Is that based on the MSA, or how do they determine the area that they're giving the
I'm
information?
gonna show you. It's not on the MSA, but yeah, it's not on the MSA. Otherwise, we have it for everybody. That is every single MSA, I think, in the country would have more than 65,000, right? But they did it by the geography that we determined, the Census Bureau, and we're going to go through that geography in a moment.
Can I ask?
Yeah, please ask any questions.